Now, I don't normally do this. I don't normally sit there and give any sort of warnings to anyone. But please, if you are ever at a convention and you find yourself sharing the same space with Max Bemis, please watch your back. This man has an unhealthy relationship to violence. And you kind of got to wonder where the line is drawn between artistic exploration and a cry for help.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another broadcast. Today I want to talk about Marvel's Max Bemis. Max, feast upon my ass, Bemis. Or more specifically, how I'm living rent-free in his head. So much so that he actually turned yours truly into a villain in Moon Knight. Yes, that's true. I was minding my own business for months. For the most part, I got away from Max, feast upon my ass. Bemis, Max, I effing hate you personally, Bemis. Since very early on, I think it was like the first or second issue of Moon Knight, when he decided he wanted to just go off on customers, go off on fans, longtime fans of Moon Knight. And Mr. Bemis didn't like that too much. Now, we all know that our good friend Nasser actually confronted C.B. Cebulski at a Q&A session, and C.B. Cebulski said that Mr. Bemis had a little talking to about how to conduct himself on social media, and that you don't tell people to feast upon your butt. That's not how they do things at Marvel, although it kind of is in terms of unprofessional behavior. We've shown that they can continue to get away with that. Saladin Ahmed, perfect example. But I digress. Anyway, Mr. Bemis, he didn't like my stuff, and he didn't like my commentary, and I could link to those as well. And so, what we have here, starting in 194, people started to contact me, and they said, Doug, Max Bemis literally put you into the book. You got to check this out. And I was true to my word. I said, you know what? I am not going to buy anything by this guy. And yeah, it turns out that there's a Nazi named Ernst. He found a way to finagle his way into the United States during World War II, extend his life. And he said, my enhancement is more simple, more elegant. I discovered a method to elongate my life so long as I sufficiently stimulate the dark primordial pleasure center of my brain on a regular basis. He's a serial killer. He's a Nazi serial killer. Now, we also know that Mr. Bemis, he's an anti-Comicsgate guy. We already knew that from his tweets, but he also is somebody who will go out of his way. He also retweets Bill Sienkiewicz as well with the whole anti-Comicsgate stuff. So everyone knows they call the Comicsgate community Nazis. They call us racists. Call us all sorts of things along those lines. And so ask yourself, how much of a coincidence would it have to be for Mr. Bemis to come up with a Nazi bad guy, a Nazi villain serial killer named Ernst? He also appears in Moon Knight 198 as well. Again, I will continue to show screenshots from the issues, as well as everything between 194 and 198. And yeah, the big reveal at the end. He says, no, Ernst, I get the damn point. I'm ready, and I'm yours. Max Bemis is ready, and he's mine. Now, the intro to this particular video was by our other friend, Mim Headroom. And so thanks, Mim, for that. I asked him beforehand if I could use his commentary. And he said, yeah, this is a guy who is legitimately disturbed. And if you were going to go to a convention anytime in the near future, if you thought he was going to be nearby, you might want to watch your back. I agree. Initially, I did not listen to all of Mim's commentary before I read everything on my own. And I did, and here's what I came across just feeling dirty reading this sort of stuff. And what we find out when we go through interviews with Mr. Bemis, when we go through his Twitter timeline, is that he is literally using Moon Knight to work through his own psychological issues, his own mental illness. He's bipolar and other things. I'm not mocking mental illness at all, but I am saying that when you work at Marvel, it's perfectly okay to add in a customer as a villain, a Marvel longtime reader as a villain if you don't like what they say. That's perfectly fine at Marvel. But if you dare to write a salty comment back after someone tells you to feast upon their butt, then that's harassment to the anti-Comicsgate crowd. Now, again, here's an example of just some of the feedback that I get from people. I usually delete stuff like this because no one has a right to call me a Nazi, a racist, and all this kind of stuff in my own comment section. They say, at least according to Ernst and his Nazi heritage, oh, you didn't know? Yeah, Ernst was a very common name in the Nazi party. Back to the task at hand. Again, guys like Dan Slott, everybody knows my history with Mr. Slott, going after me, attacking me as all sorts of things. And when he was on Twitter, he was another one of these guys. You disagree with him, Dan, no more Nazis on Twitter, please, Slott. Definition of Nazi is anyone who disagrees with guys like Dan Slott and Max Bemis. Now, let's go back to C.B. Cebulski saying, hey, you need to conduct yourself more professionally online. So I am going to put forth the theory that putting me into, for all intents and purposes, into Moon Knight is Max Bemis's middle finger to C.B. Cebulski, saying, like, you might be able to control me to some extent on social media, but I'm going to insert this Ernst guy into the book. And so when we review his stories from a psychological point of view now, there's Ernst. This is Max Bemis every time he closes his eyes. I'm in his head. I always thought that Dan Slott was going to be the guy that would blatantly put me into a book. No, it's Mr. Bemis. Look at Mr. Bemis. Max, I know I'm in your head, man, but you at least could have mixed up the name a little bit, mixed it around. Instead of Ernst, Stern would have been a good way to do it. You could have called the name, the initials could have been something with a CG, Comicsgate, Stern, something, CG Stern, I don't know. Who knows? But you're a little bit too on the nose. And my brother said, Doug, why don't you raffle the books with you as the villain in them and then donate them to a good charity? So let me know what you guys think. I might actually sign the books. So it's going to be a rarity to actually have the inspiration for the villain actually sign it. Maybe I'll put a little message for whomever it is. Let me know. Maybe during a live stream I could essentially do a raffle and everything could go to charity. It could maybe go to a charity for people with bipolar disorder, something along those lines. Maybe in a few years, I will look just like the Ernst, Uncle Ernst here. I kind of wanted to actually wear an outfit similar to this, but that's enough. Now, in Max Bemis's mind, I am the guy who would set Moon Knight up and the heroes up to kill black children, because I'm a bad guy. That's who I am. I'm the serial killer, according to Max Bemis, who would go after the Jews, the Catholic guy. He's obsessed with Jews. He wants to kill them in basements because he's a Nazi. This is what's Max Bemis's first and foremost priority is not to tell superhero tales that will inspire people, inspire children to grow up and do really cool things. It's just to write, again, in his own words, F-dumb comics, and to retweet people like Bill Sienkiewicz who are just denouncing Comicsgate. That's what they're all about. It's just political activism. It's just working through their own issues. Marvel hires people based solely on the color of their skin. If it's a black character these days in Marvel, you gotta hire a black woman. If you have an LGBTQ plus character, you gotta hire the LGBTQ plus person to write the tales. And apparently now they are hiring people with mental illness to write characters with mental illness and allowing them to put guys like me into the comic. Mr. Bemis, I had read about other comic creators being altered by their journeys and the convergence of life and art, and hadn't experienced anything like this since I was younger, and certainly not with Marvel's blessing. So yeah, he's so happy that you get to put guys like me turn into the book. Good job, Max Bemis. Good job, C.B. Cebulski. But like I said, it's probably a middle finger to C.B. Cebulski. It's probably not, hey, do you mind if I put Doug in there? Because who knows how C.B. would have reacted to that. But like I said, blatantly in there. Why? Because I dared to say, hey, this is a guy who's telling people to feast upon his butt. I effing hate you personally, and this is one of the reasons why the industry is in a downward spiral. Well, yes, again, I feel bad that the guy suffers. He has mental health problems. I have people within my life who struggle with mental health issues as well, so I'm very sympathetic to that. But that is no excuse to be a jerk. That is no excuse to be unprofessional. And that's probably where he didn't like my commentary beforehand, because I said, just because you have issues, if you can't get it under control, then you gotta go. And he obviously at a certain point in time could not keep it under control. That struck a nerve with him. Again, on some level, I'm kind of honored that my criticism of Mr. Bemis's behavior had reverberated in his head, echoed in his head so much that he had to put me into the book. But on another level, it's very strange. In one of the issues, he says, it really goes to show how someone's hangups can govern everything about them. And that is very true. Yes, Mr. Bemis, your hangups about your critics, your hangups about people who call you out on unprofessional behavior, it has actually governed everything you've done on the book, so much so that, again, your friendly neighborhood YouTuber, your friendly neighborhood blogger was actually put into the book. So, again, this is somebody, they're not into the classic hero's journey. This is not somebody that is into inspiring the next generation of children to grow up to be productive members of civil society, people with a functioning moral compass. This is somebody that wants children to read effed up work and then grow up to be effed up people. Damaged people making damaged comics in the hopes that they will create a effed up, damaged generation of kids. And this is sad. This is C.B. Cebulski's, this is his legacy right here. Max Bemis's Moon Knight, putting longtime customers, someone that has read Marvel Comics since the early 1980s. Myself, learned to read Marvel Comics, learned how to read. My brother would sit me on his lap on a chair with Spider-Man and Iron Man comic books. And that's how I learned to read. I said that in Professor Geek's live stream the other night. I've said that before. And the last thing that I did before I went into the recruiter's office in the late 90s was there was a comic shop, Moondogs, right across the street from the recruiter's office. I was reading are basically sort of like gazing at Captain America comics one last time. Then I walked across the street, enlisted in the U.S. Army. That's not what you're going to get with Max Bemis's Moon Knight and a lot of these creators. So anyway, real quick here, we don't want to make this run too long. Interview at Newsarama. Max, what is your game plan for Moon Knight? Max Bemis, well, I don't have one. I tend not to have a game plan. It comes to me as spurts, and a lot is improvised. Yes, Max, we can tell that you didn't have a game plan and that a lot of it was in fact improvised. So much so that when you got criticism from me, you put me into the book as a villain for all intents and purposes. Oh no, it's just a coincidence upon a coincidence upon a coincidence that it's Ernst, the Nazi, and the same exact thing that all of the anti-Comicsgate critics call us, that I've been called many, many times over the past few years. Anyway, the interview goes on. To me, though, Moon Knight is a place where we go as Marvel fans to almost feel uncomfortable as a superhero. It's the same in my eyes with Batman. At a certain point, you're made to feel like he's weird and it's good. You're like, this guy is effing nuts, and I'm nuts. I'm completely bonkers, so I was obviously a good fit. I love that Marvel embraces mental illness as a real thing, And I think it's come a long way in that way. All right. Again, Max, we have sympathy for your plight, but we don't want Marvel Comics being used for you to untangle all of your personal issues and all of your animosity against your critics. Mr. Bemis goes on, Jake can be a dark dude, and in my vision of him, he's done so much darker stuff off panel that we may never find out about, but are probably justifiable. Again, like I said, no moral compass with these people. The ends justify the means. If Mr. Bemis thinks that you've done something wrong, he doesn't care. Doesn't matter how bad it is. This is all into the stories over like the past 4 or 5 issues. It doesn't matter. Good is just whatever you feel needs. If somebody has wronged you, you do whatever you feel is necessary to get revenge, even if that includes putting them into the book as a supervillain. His characters, the ones that are into hurting people, pain for the sake of pain because they get enjoyment out of it. They say, when you make them mad, they get even. So Max Bemis, good job, buddy. You got even with me. You put me in a book. But like I said to people, what do you think? What do you think about signing Moon Knight number 198? Maybe the first appearance of Ernst. And we'll have maybe some sort of raffle, and we'll donate the proceeds to a charity of the Comicsgate community's choice. That's what Ethan Van Sciver did with the creators that wish all of us cancer. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I'm perfectly willing to do that in my next live stream, and we'll see where it goes. But anyway, guys, that's about it for now. Thanks for tuning in to another broadcast. I'll be back with another one in the very near future. Thanks to all my Patreon members, new and old. Thanks to all my subscribers, new and old. Thanks to Mim Headroom for letting me use the audio on this. And again, thanks to everyone within the Comicsgate network. Appreciate what you do very much. And then again, I'll be back with another video in the near future. See you later. See ya.
So I don't know whether you've got this one guy in your life, right? You know that one person, whether it's at college, at school, at work, or at church. There's always that one guy that you look at and go, bruv, if there's ever going to be one person in here who is a mass murderer, it's you. That is the exact vibe I get from Max Bemis, writer of Moon Knight.